Welcome back, everybody. It's Rodrigo, founder with Asheville Real Estate News. Really excited to bring you this episode. It's going to be all about networking, some concepts behind why it's something you should incorporate in your monthly, weekly routine, and some tips and tricks on how to do that if you're not super comfortable with networking. Before we jump into the show, just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, American IRA LLC. They're your local custodian for self-directed IRAs. If you haven't checked them out, I encourage you to do so. So, without further ado, I'm welcoming Zack Adam to the show. Thank you. Welcome. Yeah, I know we're back in we used to share an office space. It's been 2 years now, a year and a half. But yeah, it's kind of one of the places where the show started, so thank you for welcoming us back.
Thanks for being back.
Yeah, so before we jump into it, just for the people who haven't listened to maybe some of the other episodes, you run a mortgage branch here in Asheville. Do you mind kind of telling us a little bit about that? And how you got to Asheville and what you do now?
Sure. I'm the branch manager and a mortgage loan specialist here at Prime Mortgage Lending. We're in West Asheville at 862 Haywood Road. We're a correspondent lender, so we like having retail space, but it's amazing. We're growing our business online quite a bit. So 36% of our business comes offline now.
Really?
So we're hyper local. So anyone that likes to find us online, I still welcome to walk through our doors. But it's amazing to see how consumers want to do business, and we're trying to evolve with the mortgage business as well by offering either the call, click, or come in.
Call, click, or come in. I like that.
But anyways, if anyone's out there local in Asheville, we always like having visitors. We try to open up our conference room to folks in the area too, nonprofits or board meetings. I arrived in Asheville. I'm coming up on my 5th year anniversary. Oh. So January 6th, which is actually my daughter's birthday, was when we arrived here in 2014.
Lots of good things on that day.
Yeah, absolutely. The gift that keeps on giving. And Asheville has been a great community to raise my 3 children in. We also live in West Asheville and we play in West Asheville. So I really take sort of community efforts to heart. And real estate has always been a means of me making a difference, both making a difference to the world, making a difference in individual lives by providing a gateway to generating wealth, security, the establishment of home, and what that means, on so many levels. And I also take, seriously where personal finance is not something that people are taught very much.
Unfortunately.
So, I know.
Yeah.
And so I hope to see that come back in our educational system, but on the interim, we take a lot of sort of educational approaches with our clients around personal finances, personal empowerment around, how they can manage their money and help grow wealth, through real estate. Yeah. So I'm a kind of a brick and mortar kind of guy. I like tangible things, and so real estate's really aided in that process in terms of just offering up those gifts.
Awesome. Yeah, obviously we agree on the show that real estate's a really integral part of anything that has to do with financial building, personally or otherwise. Yeah. And so, yeah, I know we have that in common. Wanted to talk to you today about networking, though, specifically. It's something that I know has been very fundamentally important for everything that you've done. It's something I really believe in. That being said, it's something I'm always like showing up to network events. I'm always like, take a couple of deep breaths in the car, do a little bit of that self-talk motivation. Like, I can do this. So I know you're really involved with BNI, which is, I don't know, arguably in the forefront when it comes to networking worldwide. Sure. And so I wanted to just pick your brain and see if you could share some thoughts on networking as a whole, and then maybe some tips and tricks for somebody who's like trying to break out of, get into the networking space.
Absolutely. Well, to remind you, we actually met at a networking event, and it was specifically a BNI meeting.
What, is that the first time we met?
The first time we met.
Was it at that off of Tunnel Road?
Charlie's.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And I was impressed because immediately you said, what, I don't think this is the right place for me. But then many meetings later, when we were having coffee, you were like, well, you should check out Korea. Yeah. And so Korea was like a pretty instrumental for me on that side. So you just never know who you're going to meet.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah,
I thought we had connected online somewhere.
No.
I feel bad. My first memory is when we had coffee in Green Sage downtown is like my first memory, but either way,
that was secondary.
That was, so funny.
Yeah, so cool. I thought it was a pretty rewarding relationship that was really spawned from you having lunch and saying, well, this isn't the right. And I think that right there says a lot, because when I arrived in Asheville, I was the new kid on the block. I was new to the East Coast, new to North Carolina, new to Asheville, and I was like, I took the shotgun approach.
Yeah.
And in Asheville, you could pretty much have a full-time job networking every single day.
There's something every day. Yeah,
Every day.
It's crazy.
Which is awesome, but it's also like, whoa, where's my time and how well is it spent? But my BNI actually experience transcends my time in Asheville. And back in California, one of my best business partners and a realtor partner when I was still working for a bank said, hey, I have this meeting, come have breakfast. And this was in like 2007 maybe, or 8.
So
And
10-ish years ago.
10-ish years ago. And so having a strong referral partner invite you to, one of their meetings was great. We got to know each other. And I think over the years, we realized just seeing each other consistently every week helped us keep each other in the forefront.
Right.
And there's something about, in-person networking that differentiates yourself from being like having a strong presence online.
Right.
I like the shotgun approach.
Yeah.
Because there are certain demographics that you meet online that you can't necessarily meet locally in the flesh. But keeping it consistent and having that visibility, there's the VCP model that BNI subscribes to. So visibility is you show up, you represent yourself, your company, you speak well, you start building credibility, you're consistently seen, you show up, you're on time.
Yeah.
And then that byproduct is P, which is profitability.
Yeah.
And I really do believe in that consistency in what you do if it's working.
Right.
So generally our business model always looks at the numbers. So BNI has over the years been about 20% of our gross revenue.
Wow.
So it's pretty substantial. We've seen that figure changing. And so the question is why, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm in this process of evaluating all of the network pieces that we do. But that's been definitely one of the most consistent over the years.
Yeah, I think what you said, that's super true, right? Like the showing up and being consistent, especially that's like my networking group, wasn't BNI that I got really plugged into is Korea, as you mentioned, and it was huge because I showed up and I was very much new, I didn't know anything at all. I did just like the first networking events I'd ever gone to as well, and totally weird and felt like a fish out of the water, right? But it's really incredible to see what happens over time as you just keep chipping away at it, you keep showing up, then you start building these relationships. And some of the most impactful relationships I've had in real estate have spawned from some of the first initial contacts at some of those very awkward fish out of water moments.
I liked watching your progress through Korea because eventually you join a committee.
Yeah.
And then you join the board, and then you were president for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I also watched the organization grow under your leadership and your involvement. And so that says a lot about taking it to the next level of not only being a participant, but also being a change maker and being a leader in our community, whether you're choosing to do that through real estate or whatever your industry is, but making a difference.
Well, it's like anything, right? Once you start being a participant, you get a lot more out of something that, as long as you start putting something into it, right? Yeah. And I know you probably had a similar experience at your BNI group. I'm sure that, or I know actually that, you do more than just show up, right? So why don't you talk about that a little bit as well, about when you made that transition mentally and, to go like, oh, hey, like I want to start actually getting involved in the leadership team too.
Yeah, I think when you're a pretty active participant, it is a natural evolution.
Yeah.
And I think, some of us are just natural born leaders. I get restless. I want to contribute. I want to learn more. And so I think the best way to do that is take on some leadership things and start teaching, especially around, I liked BNI because it forced me to be a better public speaker. I really needed to and that is a skill set when you're thinking about networking that you just have to master and you have to get uncomfortable.
There's no way around
it. There's no way around it. And you just have to put yourself in that uncomfortable zone, because where does true growth come from is that uncomfortable zone. Yeah. So as long as you're pushing that threshold, and that means standing up and speaking in front of 30 people or giving presentations. And so BNI has been a nice locker room, the safety, like it's a container. People will still like me if I mess up, but I can practice so that when I do go into a sales presentation or I'm talking to 100 people on stage, that you're confidently moving through that. So I think intrinsically that's a really important skill set in networking. One is being able to public speak, which means stand up in front of 30 people and talk about who you are, what you do, and the best way that you can receive referrals. And so I think in the first year, people knew I had a history with the organization, and so they asked me to be on a membership committee. I joined the membership committee, and then in year 2, they asked me to be a director, so I went to director training. So I was like kind of regionally helping out with all of the chapters. And it's really also about being able to put yourself out there so that you're visibly seen more. And I think people trust you more when they're like, wow, he has the ability to, take on leadership skills. So. Yeah,
no, for sure. I think, so I was mentioning to you off camera. So the first time I even heard of BNI was at this big conference I went to, mostly real estate, but Dr. Ivan Meisner, who's the founder, came and spoke to it, got his book and everything. But I don't remember if it was him or why I think it was him, but I heard a quote there. It was like, it's not about who knows you, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you, right? You can know a lot of people, but if those people don't know you back, then those, connections aren't really worth that much. And that was like, kind of got imprinted in me, and I was like, okay, like you got to make that concerted effort to stay connected with people and, be looking to, how do you keep growing things like that?
And it's like being the farmer as opposed to the hunter. You cultivate those relationships, you grow them over time. And when people know you, like you, and trust you, they're more likely to do business with you. They're more likely to send their family and friends. And so, when we look at multi-year referrals from an organization like BNI, I think I'm on like 3rd generation.
Wow.
And I'm coming up on my 5th year. And people who've been in 8 to 10 years, they're on 5th and 6th generation referrals. And there's definitely a way for me to be like, in 2015, Rodrigo introduced me to this person, and then I've done 2 different transactions unrelated, but like the thank you still goes back to that day. So I think on the same accord, you want to be tracking your activities and your time. In 2019 for us, we're getting laser focused with our networking because sometimes we recognize we do a lot, and so therefore, when is a lot too much? And then when does your time become ineffective, depending on what you're up to. So we're devising a system. Part of the tricks, tips and tricks, that is really like evaluating your hourly rate. And
that's always a humbling exercise.
That, but you really want a dollar figure on that hourly rate, and you want to then start to look at calculating all the time you spend at various organizations on the networking side. Once you've had those raw numbers, then every quarter what we're going to be doing is we're going to evaluate everything we do based on an A through D system. And that A through D system means like in our A category, are these referral people or networks generating top dollar? That
your output's what your matches.
And then, if it's tier 2 on B, then okay, like our activities are reduced, we're monitoring what we do. C, and then D usually means okay, like once a quarter touch, once a year, etc. And we're going to be evaluating that every 90 days, and we are putting a dollar amount on all of our activities. And you can calculate it by the minute if you want to get super granular.
It just goes to show, it's like we could do a whole nother show on just that, on just like knowing whatever your KPI numbers or your key performance indicators are, like what do you need to be tracking. So let's not digress too far there because I actually love that topic. But let's go really basic.
Okay.
Somebody's never gone to a networking event. They're just getting into real estate or whatever, any other industry that's very relationship based. What tips would you give somebody who's like first timer going to their first networking event?
I think what you said, like a little bit of prep work beforehand, like just either like with your spouse or your kids or your friend or in a mirror, of just at least having a 30 to 60 second elevator speech that you can fall back on. And having, that structured as always an introduction of who you are and what you do. And then maybe the body of that 60 seconds, that 20 minutes or 20 seconds is a quick story on, how you help someone. And then on the tail end, you just reiterate who you are. So that if you just like meet someone and you totally freeze, you have a little bit of
Yeah.
fallback.
You got some muscle memory on
Little
your
bit.
tongue, yeah.
But that, I think, in time also recognizing that it's okay to make mistakes. So
Yeah.
when you do first walk into your network group and you just fumble a little bit, that's
Yeah.
okay. Like
Mhm.
people will understand, and the more you do it, so the more you put yourself out there and like systematically do it every week, you will get better with practice.
And it helps if you're going to an event where you're seeing familiar faces. You might not be friends with them yet, but at least it's not the first time you have to see.
Right.
So that speaks to the consistency. I always found it helpful to have a couple of questions. I could always like, if I was standing with somebody and we were both like in that awkward moment of silence, be like, I've got something. Have you found that to be the same, or is there anything like?
It's so easy to start on like, what do you do? Where do you work?
That always goes smoothly.
Just
and then
those
what?
basic ones.
Yeah.
How did you get to Asheville?
Yeah.
I think being personable is really important. Like,
I've always asked. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Yeah, like don't always go right for the business,
No.
but like just meet this person as another human being. I think like put yourself in the airport setting. Like, you can definitely easily spark up a conversation if you're in line or sitting next to someone. So
I got this off of a podcast. I don't remember even which one it is now, but it was like, ask like, what are you excited? What are you working on right now that's exciting? Because I feel like that's always a good one that opens it up. It's not just work, right? Hobbies, etc. And then, is there anything you're training for or you're working for outside of work? Again, hobbies, music, races, etc. Especially those two have always been my like. Unless I know somebody's a big sports fan, then soccer and NFL football I'm always like can go to. But it's always helpful when you have that prep time though, right? What about follow-up and stuff? Because sometimes you go to these events, you meet 30 people. How do you follow up with everybody? Or do you just kind of make a mental list and be like, I'm going to send them an email, but I'm not going to worry if they email me back type? How do you sort through contacts?
I really believe in CRM.
Yeah.
So
what is that for somebody who might not know?
Right. So client relations management, and depending on your industry, there are so many options. I mean, the beast of all beasts is Salesforce.com. We have transitioned from using a Salesforce. There's really specific one in our industry called mortgage returns. We're on Surefire 3.0, and so we've evolved that. But my theory is that you put every single contact in your database. Yeah. And then you can create different segments on how you communicate to those audiences. But if I go to a mega network event through the chamber and I come back with 100 business cards, all of those cards will go into our CRM.
Do you do them yourself and do you follow up with them, or do you?
Depends on whether they fit my A through D system.
Okay.
So if they're in the A list, absolutely. I'll follow up because knowing me and my personality, I'm much more effective one-on-one with people.
Right.
And so if there's a key contact that I meet in a large network group, I will pluck them out and make a point to either call, text, or email as a follow-up, whether it be like a coffee or a lunch appointment or something. You can't necessarily do that with everyone. Right. And so as long as you know how to evaluate your key referral partners, I think that would be helpful in terms of how you decide on what your next action steps are. But generally, if you're just starting out, I would definitely focus on growing your database. I don't know if we checked last, but I think there's like 7,000 contacts in our database. I've been pretty religious about that since getting in the business since 2005. Yeah. But as you grow, then you can then start segmenting it. And I think our last newsletter went to maybe about 4,600 folks. Okay. And that was just, clear, awesome content, had really nothing to do with mortgage lending. Yeah. But people respond to it and they like the content. And I would hate to miss the opportunity to stay in front of folks if I didn't get their contacts in the database. So.
Well, nah, man, I know we could talk about this forever, but we don't have forever. Do you have any simple, if you're going to emphasize networking, whether it's a skill or why it's important, what would you summarize anything for somebody who's maybe on the edge or on the fence?
On the fence, I would just say do it. Yeah. There's no exceptions, and it gets easier the more that you do it. So again, practice, practice, practice. And I would be, as an entrepreneur, as just a business owner or someone in a sales development role that's maybe wanting to get involved in real estate, I'd recommend putting yourself out there and taking small steps. So the first step is literally to show up. Yeah. And the more consistently that you show up, I think the easier it'll get.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Man, thanks so much for getting on the show. As well, quick question though. Yes. People want to connect with you, website, social media, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, website is nc.com. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook.
Yeah.
You can find us under Prime Mortgage Lending of West Asheville. And we're also located at 862 Haywood Road, so feel free to drop on by.
Cool. Awesome, man. Good seeing you
Great.
again.
You too, buddy.
All right, y'all. There you had it. As Zach said, if you're on the fence, just go do it. If you're looking for a good place to get started and you don't know where to go, don't forget we have a meetup group first Wednesday of every month. We'd love to see you there. Super laid back, and it's a good way to kind of get your feet wet and get that experience of networking in a relaxed setting. And remember, first 10 people get a free beer, so it's a good incentive. Show up early. We'll be happy to chat with you early and just connect. So thanks so much to everybody for tuning in. Look forward to talking to you all next week. Take care.